The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to the Shiny Side Out .radio. That's right. If you don't know it, donate if you can, please. It's listener funded radio. Very important that you help us stay on the air, and of course the best way to do that is to donate. If you can't donate, but just tell people about the station. You've come tuned into the second hour of the show today, and 632, right? 230 and 600 is.
That's correct.
There we are. That's an awful lot of shows, to be honest, that we've put out over the last more than a decade now. And today we are, I think we may conclude Kozyrev's mirror and remote viewing, but I shouldn't speak too soon. We have a tendency to ramble on, as it were. But hopefully we can finish today and then have something new next week. There's some very interesting topics, obviously, to get through. And now we were sharing with you a research undertaking that repeated the experiments and improved upon them that had been undertaken by the CIA and others to, see if remote viewing is a thing. And it seems remote viewing is a thing, even if it's only a thing from a statistical point of view rather than empirical. So what that means is, yes, from a statistical point of view, something significant seems to be taking place. Okay? Something that you wouldn't expect just by mere chance. That's really what this is saying. However, because we don't know what that is, we can't devise empirical tests for it. Meaning it's really hard to pinpoint what it is that is going down. But it does seem that if you're positively disposed to the phenomenon, so if you believe in the phenomenon, and you've got a high emotional intelligence, right? Chances are that you are better at it. Your results in these tests will be better than someone who is not. Now, that shouldn't actually happen because that doesn't make any sense. Okay, it just doesn't. Yet, that's exactly what this study found. There are other studies, of course, but I think at this point, and we can put together a show around this, just highlighting the evidence, I think it is fair to say, I really do, that these anomalous occurrences and perceptions, call them ESP, call them whatever you like, are actually a thing. They're a thing, right? And the question, of course, is how are they a thing? How could this be a thing? But they are a thing. Telepathy, remote viewing, clairvoyance, precognition, and all of those wonderful things that don't make any sense actually make perfect sense in the quantum world. They really do. All of it. And since scientists have been saying that our brain is most likely a quantum construct, not my words, I would say that these phenomena that clearly are generated in our minds, in our brains, etc., in folded up dimensions we might not be able to perceive. On a quantum level, they're quantum phenomena. Therefore, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that they're real. Can we explain it? No, but we can't explain quantum physics either. And yet there it is. In fact, we've got trouble explaining most things in the world. Yet there they are. This is just another one. And the problem, of course, is that it really shakes the foundations of our universe, because we've got certain ideas and we've built on those ideas. It's like, when you shake on the foundation of the house, you don't feel comfortable. This is not good. I like my thing. I like to know what I'm doing. Why do you have to make me feel uncomfortable? I don't want to feel uncomfortable. Why do you have to do that? Please don't do that. But you don't get anywhere if you feel comfortable, ever, right? You just don't get anywhere. Nothing happens. Discomfort is part of the investigative and explorative processes. You can only gain knowledge if you're uncomfortable. You cannot gain knowledge when you're comfortable, because what's the motivation? Okay, so we need to, I think, Dave, I really think we need to take it as read that these phenomena are real. Okay, I don't want to discuss with anyone. I don't want to argue anymore and say, they'll say, oh, that's crazy. There's no such thing as ESP. There's no such thing as telepathy. No such thing as remote viewing, etc., etc. There are police departments around the world who use psychics, let's call them, right, to solve crime. Why? Why would you do that? If it doesn't work, you would not do that, Dave. You wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. It just wouldn't happen. It's stupid. Okay, if you have tried to taste your mother's soup on the stove once and you burned your tongue, you're not going to do it again, because that would be stupid. If you employ psychics to solve your crime and it embarrasses you, it doesn't lead to anything, why go back and get more? It makes no sense. And yet here we are. And police departments do. Okay. And the three-letter and actually many letters, just the acronym societies, the acronym institutions still use these people. They still do. They still do, and they will continue to do this because it works. It works. Okay. There's so much anecdotal evidence. I mean, you yourself, Dave, you've dreamt or seen things that then happened, right? Mm-hmm. If you're familiar with deja vu and all those things, right? Intimately. And you can stand on your head, but it's something that happened to you. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. Absolutely. And you can say that Dave is lying. Why, though, is beyond me. Why Dave would lie about this? It's not just
wrong,
Dave.
Mickey.
That's clearly correct. You're wrong. Again, it makes no sense, right, to lie. Because you're just opening yourself up for ridicule. Much easier to say, oh, this never happened to me. Yeah, no, I don't know. You're crazy. You're all crazy. Crazy talks. Right? That's what Dave should say if he wants his peace. But unfortunately, Dave isn't built that way. So yeah, pretending to be it is. I mean, there are people, of course, that pretend to be psychics and clairvoyants, and they will swindle you out of your money. Of course there are. But there are also people that pretend to be doctors, okay, and lawyers and construction workers. That, in fact, when they get things wrong, those pretenders, the consequences are usually much more dire than they were with a, psychic or the like. But Dave, let us go
no,
to the
I'm going
text
to tell you
here.
something first before I jump into
please.
Major General Albert Stubelbein. 1876. Do you know what that year was good for?
It's a very nice Merlot on the south side.
There may very well be, or maybe the north side of the hill in France, right?
That's the one.
Well, that's the year that the term was first used, déjà vu, by Emily Boyrac, and it was 1876. Now, I didn't invent the term, right? I did not. I just used that term to describe something that I experienced that matched the description that term suggests, having seen. That's what it is. So déjà vu occurs when someone perceives they have already experienced a situation before and their body experiences familiarity with the experience, and then they've added the word "and confusion." I wasn't confused. I've had déjà vu tons of times. I know what I'm experiencing. It's like there's a little fold in time, and I got to see 8 seconds in the future. That's it. You know, when it happens, you get a weird feeling. There's always a feeling associated with it. You're not just sitting there and then suddenly, oh, like a robot. Oh, this has happened again. I just saw a cat, like the Matrix, right?
Meow.
I just saw a cat just like it. And it was exactly the same. What, right? So, to be told, you know, I think that's really funny, Mickey. To be told that I was wrong, or it's not, you know, it's not correct. Sure. Well, you haven't. Maybe your emotional intelligence is low. I'm going to start using that one. I love it. While we were in the previous hour, by the way, everyone, I did go to a website that describes EI versus IQ. And EI allows you to interact with the world. And the more of it you have, the better you can interact with the world. The less of it you have, well, you might just be book smart. I'll be kind. You might be really book smart, but not prepared for interactions with other people, for instance, and exposure to situations that might test your EI. And let's just put it like that. Instead of rocking in a fetal position, saying, uh-oh. So, learn how to deal with things. So, Meki, military personnel.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Major General Albert Stubelbein. Main article, Albert Stubelbein. A key sponsor of the I'm reading the silent stuff, I know. A key sponsor of the research internally at Fort Meade, Maryland, Major General Stubelbein was convinced of the reality of a wide variety of psychic phenomena. He required that all of his battalion commanders learn how to bend spoons, a la Uri Geller, and he himself attempted several psychic feats, even attempting to walk through walls. I couldn't help that laugh. I'm sorry. In the early 1980s, he was responsible for the United States Army Intelligence and Security Command, INSCOM, during which the remote viewing project in the US Army began. Some commentators have confused Project Jedi, allegedly run by Special Forces primarily out of Fort Bragg, with Stargate. After some controversy involving these experiments, including alleged security violations from uncleared civilian psychics working in sensitive compartmented information facilities, SCIFs, we all know what they are now from the UFO Senate inquiry, Major General Stubelbein was placed on retirement. I'm sorry, mate, you've got to go. But I don't want to leave. Oh, you can retire. Oh, good. His successor as the INSCOM commander was Major General Henry Soyster, who had a reputation as a much more conservative and conventional intelligence officer. MG Soyster was not amendable to continuing paranormal experiments, and the Army's participation in Project Stargate ended during his tenure.
David Morehouse, in his book Psychic Warrior Inside the CIA Stargate Program, the true story of a soldier's espionage and awakening, Morehouse claims to have worked on hundreds of remote viewing assignments, from searching for a Soviet jet that crashed in the jungle carrying an atomic bomb to cracking suspected double agents.
Joseph McGonigal. McGonigal claims he had a remarkable memory of a very early childhood events. He grew up surrounded by alcoholism, abuse, and poverty. As a child, he had visions at night which scared and began to hone his... when scared at night when scared, and began to hone his psychic abilities in his teens for his own protection when he hitchhiked. He enlisted to get away. McGonigal became an experimental remote viewer while serving the U.S. Army intelligence. Huh.
Indeed. In fact, I think he was killed. I'm still looking it up. Ed Dames. Dames was one of the first 5 Army students trained by Ingo Swann through stage 3 in coordinate remote viewing, because Dames' role was intended to be as a session monitor and analyst as an aide to Fred Atwater rather than a remote viewer. Dames received no further formal remote viewing training. After his assignment to the remote viewing unit at the end of January 1986, he was used to run remote viewers as a monitor, provide training, and practice sessions to viewer personnel. He soon established a reputation for pushing CRV to extremes with target sessions on Atlantis, Mars, UFOs, and aliens. He has been a frequent guest on the Coast to Coast AM radio shows.
I've actually got his DVD, Kill Shot.
Yes.
So him and his researchers kept coming, they were looking forward in time, trying to see what happens. And they hit a brick wall and couldn't see anything after this huge cataclysm. There was just nothing there. And not knowing when is, I think it's to be honest, Mekki, it's torture. You see these events and you don't know when it happens, but if you can see a list of more than one event, you can kind of hop towards it, given a number of postcards in order. And that's really, pardon me, how they're perceived by the remote viewers.
Yeah.
All right. I might go and get a glass of water.
You go ahead, my friend, and
I'll
I'll get up and close. I get up close and personal with the remote viewer. So this is actually an interview with Joseph McMoneagle from December 4th, 1995, and it's written by Linton Weeks, and it's from the Washington Post. That's the article from the Washington Post. Joseph McMoneagle may be watching you read this. After all, that was his job for 15 years, watching people he could not see for the Pentagon. He was called a remote viewer. Remote viewers have been in the headlines recently because it's come to light that several of them worked on the Stargate program, a top-secret multi-million-dollar project at Fort Meade, using their supposed paranormal know-how and nowhere to help locate American hostages, enemy submarines, strategic buildings in foreign countries, and who knows what else. A new report commissioned by the CIA was critical of Stargate and called further expenditures on this unjustified. Yesterday, at his light and airy home in Nelson County, Virginia, McMoneagle, 49, defended remote viewing, which he explained as the act of describing or drawing details about a place, person, or thing without having any prior knowledge of that place, person, or thing. He said that true remote viewing, unlike crystal ball gazing and tea leaf reading, is always conducted under strict scientific protocols. Granted, it sounds a little squirrely, and it doesn't really help to know that McMoneagle, a retired Army warrant officer, has also trafficked in near-death experiences, out-of-body travel, and unidentified flying objects. In 1993, he wrote a book called Mind Trek, Exploring Consciousness, Time, and Space Through Remote Viewing. But he put his skills on the line last week on national television when ABC became, for an hour, the other psychic network, and the demonstration was impressive. Since then, the phone's been ringing. Despite a bad back and the exhaustion that comes with flashpoint celebrity, he was eager to talk about his expertise. He was stretched out flat on his living room couch, wearing a green V-neck sweater, blue jeans, and brown loafers. He got a thick neck, gray, white hair, and a trace of bitterness in his voice. This is McMoneagle talking. My career was destroyed in the Army. said McMonigal, who joined in 1964 and was severely injured in a helicopter accident in Vietnam. He said he knew when he first joined the Stargate project, which was then called Grill Flame in 1978, that he would never again be taken seriously for any other job in the military. But he felt the assignment was too important to national security to decline. Everybody's got it all backwards, he said, of the criticism and ridicule the project is receiving today. He explained that the government was not using psychics to find people or things. They were using remote viewers, about 15 of them, who operated under strict guidelines developed in the laboratories at SRI International, a California contractor, to provide additional information to be used in conjunction with intelligence gathered by satellites or spies or any other traditional means. He said the reported cost of $20 million for the 20-year project was minuscule compared to its value, and estimated that remote viewers saved the government about $240 million by helping find lost Scud missiles in the Persian Gulf War. Research has shown that remote viewing works 15% of the time or more, he said. There's a huge percentage of intelligence collection systems that don't do as well. The information provided by remote viewers, he reiterated, was never used without other types of corroboration. He said nearly every agency with an intelligence wing, including the CIA, the National Security Agency, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Secret Service, the Coast Guard, and Customs, employed remote viewers at some time or another. Dave?
On a typical workday, McGonigal said he reported to an old, leaky wooden barracks at Fort Meade, where he went into... Oh, no wonder it was hard to read. There we go, that fixed it. Much better. So I had actually, to be honest with you, I had... I could see all of the text around it, the spaces, and hit enter and carriage returns. No wonder I was having a problem. Because for everyone, I was editing my mother's book. Okay, so he sat at a desk with a typewriter and a mug of coffee. The cup said, "This end up," and had an arrow pointing the wrong way. So he was then presented with sealed envelopes, sometimes large brown ones, sometimes small white ones, and he was asked to supply information about whatever was inside. There might be a photograph of a person, and he would be asked to describe where the person was located. In that way, he said, he helped the army locate hostages in Iran. He said he predicted almost precisely where Skylab was going to fall 11 months before the spacecraft returned to Earth in 1979. He named the city in Italy, Padua, and described the second floor apartment where Brig General Jen James Dozier was held hostage by the Red Brigades in 1981, and the information arrived in Italy on the day Dozier was released. Over the years, McGonigal said he was involved in about 450 missions. One of his favourites was in 1980, when CIA personnel captured a suspected KGB agent in South Africa. They wanted to know how the agent was communicating with the Soviet military. They put an envelope on McGonigal's desk, and without knowing anything of the man, McGonigal told the CIA that the man liked to use a small pocket calculator. The calculator turned out to be disguised shortwave radio. McGonigal retired from the Army in 1984, but continued to work as a Stargate consultant. Last week, whenever this was, he appeared on Nightline and on the ABC special Put to the Test. It's not like he handed me a perfect photograph of the location, said independent producer Ruth Riven of Elemental Productions. When asked about McGonigal's performance, some of the descriptions were pretty remarkable, she said. We followed all the scientific protocol laid out by Edwin May, a nuclear physicist at SRI, who's been researching remote viewing for the last 20 years. Riven flew McGonigal to Houston, a city he had never visited. She hired a location scout and instructed her to take photos of several Houston landmarks. One of the spots was chosen by a roll of the dice to even randomize it further. And Riven sent an official of the Houston Tourist Bureau there. McGonigal was locked in a windowless room, shown a photo of the tourism official, and asked to describe where the woman was. He spoke of a natural river that had been improved by man and of a bridge with foot traffic. The woman was standing near the ship channel in Houston. A bridge for automobiles was in the distance. Today, McGonigal runs his one-man company, Intuitive Intelligence Applications, from a bedroom equipped with a Zeus computer, windows facing the Blue Ridge Mountains, and a color photo of the Sphinx. He said he can help a wildcatter find an oil well or a quarry operator know where to mine. But he's still quietly angry about the way his service to his country is being portrayed. He said he was never paid more than a man of his rank, chief warrant officer, and as a consultant until 1993, he made even less. The project was approved on a year-to-year basis, he said. This approval was based on our performance, so why the hell are they running for cover now? He asks.
Yeah.
Joseph McGonigal retired from the army, worked at Fort Meade during remote viewing for Stargate. Everybody's got it all backwards, he said.
Look, it's a fair point too. I mean, if you're running for 20 years, and the Soviets are running similar programs for even longer, and the Soviets are less tolerant of failure, let's say, a lot more open windows in Russia. Then you have to ask yourself, well, why would they, if truly it doesn't work, if really there's nothing here and move along, nothing to see, then why on earth would they persist and year after year, pump more money into this thing? It doesn't make any sense, right? Unless it does yield results. If it yields results, okay, hey, I can use this. This is okay. And again, for 20 years, And if he's right here, if every year they had to justify their existence, and to be honest, it sounds right, because government programs essentially approved on an annual budget basis, then how is it that it was approved year after year if it didn't net any results? So I think I can safely say that it in fact did have an impact and delivered good results. Now, I promised you there would be a patent. There is, for Kozyrev's mirror. Okay, now it's actually called Device for Correction of Man's Psychosomatic Diseases. And the fields in which this patent exists is scientific and practical medicine, may be used for treatment of arterial hypertension, gastric and duodenal ulcers, neuroses, and for the removal of chronic fatigue syndrome in state of psycho-emotional stress after psychical and physical loads. The substance device has construction which limits a working space. Construction consists of aluminium alloy plates, 0.5 millimeter thick, up to 280 centimeters high and 120 centimeters wide, with ground surface and curvature providing for focus at a distance of 50 centimeters from operating surface. Plates are connected to one another and they form spiral-shaped surface. Construction may be mounted on platform coupled to motor responsible for rotation. Effect, enhanced correction efficiency, etc., etc. And there's some images here, and the images are in fact of a Kozyrev mirror, which has been bent, bent, I guess is the best way, in the shape of a nautilus shell, according to the Fibonacci sequence numbers. And it's called a magnetic treatment device. The patent in Russia is RU 22446C1. And there's also a PDF that can be downloaded. There's also worldwide applications, RU, and a couple of other related patent applications. And this is the description, Dave, translated from the Russian. Why don't you indulge us as much as you like?
Yeah, great. The invention relates to the field of scientific and practical medicine and can be used in the treatment of human psychosomatic diseases, in particular arterial hypertension, gastric ulcer, and duodenal. No, they're close. Duodenal ulcer, neurosis, probably different. To relieve chronic fatigue syndrome, a state of psycho-emotional stress, and after mental and physical exertion, and also for research purposes. Numerous methods and devices for drug therapy, psychotherapy, psychosomatic diseases are known. A disadvantage of the known methods and devices is that each of them is either specific for certain types of psychosomatic diseases and not for the group as a whole, or does not have an effect for patients with forms of diseases that are resistant to therapeutic effects. A device is known, the Reich camera, made in the form of a camera that limits the working space, with flat rectangular walls of multi-layer alternating materials, insulation material or metal, while steel and iron are used as metal. The principle of operation of the device is based on exposing the patient to accumulated cosmic energy. Despite fragmentary indications of the possibility of using the device for medicinal purposes, no reliable information has yet been received about the therapeutic effect of this device, including for patients with psychosomatic diseases, i.e., the task of correcting psychosomatic pathology based on this device has not been solved. A device, the hypomagnetic chamber, for the correction of psychosomatic diseases of a person, made in the form of a design that limits the working space, in the form of a room or chamber with flat rectangular walls, of steel sheets that isolate the patient from heliogeophysical fields. A disadvantage of the known device is that it gives a therapeutic effect only for a narrow cycle of patients with a high degree of heliometeosensitivity. Meanwhile, among patients with psychosomatic diseases, individuals of a moderate and weak degree of dependence on heliogeophysical factors are often found. The problem to which the claimed invention is directed is to provide a device suitable for the correction of a wide range of psychosomatic diseases, providing a therapeutic effect for patients with forms of diseases resistant to treatment by known methods, with a different degree of heliometeosensitivity, simple enough in design and available for widespread use in practical healthcare. This problem is solved by creating a structure of metal plates of aluminium alloy with a thickness of 1.5 millimeters, a height of 280 centimeters, and a width of 120 centimeters, with a polished surface and curvature, providing focus at a distance of 50 centimeters from the working surface, interconnected with the formation of a spiral-shaped surface. So basically you sit in the center of a spiral that's tall like a wall. The wall is spiraled inward and you sit in a space in the middle. Moreover, the shape of the device may be cylindrical or a spiral with a an internal semi-open cylindrical working space, depending on the nature of the therapeutic effect and the type of psychosomatic pathology, which is subject to correction. It is assumed that this design all allows you to correct or focus and redirect according to the laws of optics to the regulatory zones of the body. Your own electromagnetic field, this is what it does, it corrects your own electromagnetic field and other fields of the human body, enhancing their interaction with the heliogeophysical fields that act as a biorhythm synchronizer. Back to you, Mackie.
Very good. The device consists of 4 to 10 main structural elements, each of which is a concave metal plate made of aluminum alloy with the surface polished from the inside with a thickness of 1.5 millimeters, a height or length of up to 280 centimeters, a width of 120 centimeters, with curvature providing focus at a distance of 50 centimeters from the working surface. Each structural element is docked with the others and fixed using 15 fixing screws and fixing angular metal plates measuring 5 by 5 by 280 centimeters, riveted on both sides to the working surface of each element. For greater structural rigidity in the upper and lower parts of each element, an aluminium rim of the same curvature as the working surface of 120 by 100 by 15 centimeters is used. Elements can be joined and fastened to each other, forming a cylinder. Open in the entry area, also a left or right-handed spiral structure of 8 to 10 elements, with a working space in the form of an open cylinder. Each of the forms of constructions, cylindrical and spiral, has its own purpose. The cylindrical design is used to restore the tone of the body in conditions of psychophysical and psycho-emotional stress, having a mild sedative harmonizing effect. It is assumed that the spiral-shaped left-handed design provides a more active interaction with the working space of the device and the electromagnetic and other fields of the body contained in it, with the astro-geophysical space rotate with the Earth. The correction effect can be enhanced by using an additional rotating round wooden platform on which a spiral structure is mounted. In this case, the platform is connected to the drive from an electric motor and provides rotation of the structure clockwise or counterclockwise at a speed of 1 to 3 meters per minute. The rotating platform is used as an additional reinforcing effect of the correction element in cases of prolonged and severely occurring psychosomatic diseases. Mandatory conditions for obtaining an active working space inside the structure and therefore to achieve a corrective effect are placement of the structure in a room outside of local magnetic and biolocation anomalies. Placement of the structure in a soundproof room using fluorescent lamps for lighting. Carrying out procedures taking into account the heliogeophysical situation, since the correction effect is determined by the heliogeophysical situation to which the patient is most sensitive. 1 day after completion of assembly, the design is ready for use. No power sources other than an electric motor for rotating the platform are required. The device operates as follows. The patient is placed in the working space of the device in a sitting position for 15 minutes, with the first 10 minutes occupying a central place and the next 5 minutes in one of the peripheral foci, facing a metal mirror at a distance of 50 centimeters from its surface. The most optimal for therapeutic procedures are the periods of the new and full moon, as well as magneto-ionospheric storms. It is better to leave the latter as know-how. That's interesting that the moon actually plays a role here, as well as having magnetic or really thunderstorms, or even or aurora borealis-like effects. Before and after each procedure, the patient checks the level of blood pressure, temperature, and electrical parameters of some acupuncture points. When correcting psycho-emotional stress, an additional Lucia test is performed in dynamics. The number of procedures for one course is from 7 to 10. The effectiveness of the course is evaluated rather by the dynamics of the clinical parameters characterizing a particular psychosomatic disease. Patients with neurosis after 3 to 5 procedures note improvement in general condition, sleep, feel rested, and without the use of physiotherapeutic drugs. With dynamic assessments of the state according to the Taylor-Asing MMPI scales, the level of neuroticism and anxiety of patients significantly decreases after a course of 10 procedures. Now, just very quickly here, this is translated from the Russian, right? So some of the phrasings might seem a bit awkward, but that's part and parcel of translating foreign languages. Why don't you take us through the example here, Dave?
Thanks. So, patient R, 42 years old, who lost all relatives during Sakhalin earthquake, experienced prolonged stressful overload, arrived for outpatient examination and treatment with a diagnosis of psychoneurosis. An objective examination showed a decrease in overall nutrition, vegetative vascular dystonia, signs of cardioneurosis, increased tendon reflexes, white dermographism, and tremor of the hands. Sedatives did not give a positive effect. After 3 sessions in a cylindrical mirror installation, subjective improvement was noted without positive objective changes. The course is continued in the installation of a spiral shape with the left-hand side of the spiral. After 3 procedures, an improvement in overall well-being, sleep, and a decrease in blood pressure from 180/100 were recorded. Art before treatment was basically recorded after the treatment, or before, far out. From 180/100, HT were recorded. Art, it says, before treatment up to 130/80, RT, art, and its stabilization at this level, marked improvement in appetite, increase in body weight, the cessation of heart pain, tremor of the hands, normalization of tendon reflexes. According to psychological testing, according to the Taylor and Eysenck scales, a decrease in levels of neuroticism and anxiety was recorded. When tested after 3 months after completion of the correction course, persistent remission was noted. Blood pressure 120/89. No complaints. In patients with arterial hypertension, after 5 to 6 procedures, blood pressure stabilizes, headaches decrease, sleep improves. After a course of 10 procedures, ECG indicators improve, signs of myocardial overload and coronary circulation disorders disappear. Within 3 months after the first course, a positive therapeutic effect persists in 70% of the patients. The dosage of antihypertensive drugs is reduced. The frequency of crisis conditions, their dependence on adverse heliophysical conditions are reduced. The level of disability and the number of emergency calls are reduced 3 to 4 times. Wow, Meki, what's next?
Patient S, example 2, 54 years old, with hypertension syndrome. After examination and exclusion of symptomatic hypertension, the diagnosis was made. Hypertension 2, tablespoon mixed form. Blood pressure ranges from 170/100 to 220/110. Frequent crises during unfavorable heliogeophysical periods, with emergency call 2 to 3 times a week. patient is assigned to a stable form of the disease because treatment with sedatives and antihypertensive drugs did not give a positive effect. So chemical treatment, actual physical medication, had no effect. A course of 5 procedures in a mirror installation of a spiral shape with the right-hand side of the spiral did not work. With the continuation of the course, a hypertensive effect was noted in the installation with the left spiral path. Blood pressure decreased to a level of 160 over 100 to 150 over 190. The anti-hypertensive effect increased with the additional rotation of the unit clockwise. Blood pressure stabilized at 140 over 80. Overall health has improved. Headaches have decreased, sleep has improved, and heliometeor dependence has also decreased. After 2 months after the completion of a course of 10 procedures, a stable stabilization of blood pressure was observed, 140 over 80, 150 over 90, reducing the number of crisis conditions, reducing the dosage of antihypertensive drugs from 6 tablets per day to half a tablet every other day. In patients with peptic ulcer of the stomach and duodenum after 1 course, which is 7 procedures, accelerated restoration of the mucous membrane in the area of the ulcer surface and an almost complete disappearance of the pain syndrome are noted. The achieved effect lasts for 3 to 4 months. Dave?
Example 3, patient N, 34 years with a diagnosis of gastric ulcer and 12 duodenal ulcer. Suffers from peptic ulcer for 6 years with an annual
Exacerbations.
Thank you. Exasperations. No. That's right. In the spring, chemophysiotherapeutic treatment did not lead to persistent remissions. After the next poorly stopping what's the word again?
Sorry, exacerbation.
Is it? Wow, it sounds like it's not right, but that's right.
It's right.
I know it's right. An examination was appointed confirming the presence of ulcerative surfaces measuring 2.5 by 1.5 centimeters in the region of the lesser curvature of the stomach and 1.5 by 1 centimeters in the area of the bulb of the duodenum. The patient is assigned to the category with a stable form of the disease after 4 sessions in a counterclockwise rotating vertical installation with a left-handed spiral. A decrease in pain was noted. The effect increased when the unit was rotated counterclockwise. After 8 sessions with repeated fibrogastroscopy, FGS, in the area of lesser curvature, a spot of hyperemic mucous membrane 1 by 1 centimeter in size was determined at the site of the ulcer. On the mucosa of the bulb of the duodenum 12, no defects were found. With FGS, 2 months after the end of the course of treatment, no visible mucosa or mucosal defects were noted. Pain and other complaints of the patient were absent. Chemo and physiotherapeutic agents were no longer used.
Now, it is interesting to note here that the device is actually a Kozyrev mirror. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
And the patents are going back to the early 90s here. That's when they were launched, I guess, in 1998, 1996. But the supporting literature is going as far back as the late 70s, in fact, 79, and which all sort of came after Kozyrev was playing around with this device. So it seems that apart from the ability to potentially enhance remote viewing capabilities, like in subjects, it also seemed to have other effects, namely, of course, health effects for people where physical chemicals and like the drug regime was no longer successful. Now just think about that for a second. That's actually astounding to have something like that work for people where drugs are failing, right? But clearly that seems to be the case here. Okay, so it is really the Kozyrev mirror that was being used for remote viewing as well as curing. I think we can see, if not curing, at least alleviating certain psychosomatic diseases. And psychosomatic diseases are diseases that are, not imaginary, but they're caused by you. Well, they're caused by yourself due to stress, etc. Essentially, stress situations cause your body to fall sick. Your mind causes your body to get sick. That's really what this psychosomatic means. Okay. And the ulcers and so like the physical manifestations disappeared. The pain disappeared. Right? This is quite astounding stuff. So forget for a second the remote viewing capacity. There is something here that is causing something. There's an effect. There's a measurable effect that makes people better. So it's used obviously for medical and therapeutic purposes, or can be used that way, right? But we still don't know what that might be, right? And is it really a stretch then to say, well, there's clearly an effect here which we don't understand fully, but it seems that this effect also, in its, I guess, greatest amplification, allows us to pierce the veil of time. Let's call it the veil of time and space. Are we able to peer into the future or into other spaces? Is that possible? And the answer is, well, probably. And again, I come back to the point that the Soviet Union didn't really have a lot of patience with anyone for anything. And if they didn't get results, that scientists would soon find themselves in Siberia in a gulag together with their family. That's what would normally happen. I mean, it's not great, but it's what happened in the world back then. So the question becomes, what are we tapping into here? What is the science? What are the explanations? Clearly it looks like there's another form of energy field that we're tapping into. Some frequency that seems to be useful to treat people. In certain conditions.
Is there a lensing effect caused by the moon's passage in front of us?
Yeah, good point.
Between us and a source in the universe somewhere. Is it the galactic center that it's passing through, or some other source of energy?
Good question. And in fact, if you look at the mirror itself, now mirrors have always been used to focus light, right? Since especially mirrors that were curved. And this is if nothing else, it's a curved mirror, really. Curved in line with the Fibonacci sequence. So yeah, Dave, I mean, sure, why not? It seems to be doing something. It seems to be concentrating something, because the device
looks
itself,
like a collector.
Yes. And interestingly enough, you also have to rotate it, and certain rotations help others, while other rotations are required for other patients.
That's right.
So it's a bit of I guess a bit of a trial and error when it comes to treatment, which is good. There's nothing wrong with it, because everybody's different. But you're right. Does it have a lensing effect? Could it, what is it that is being lensed? What is being collected? What are the particles? What is the energy? And that's really the question. Is it possible?
When you look at the first radio receivers that were used that discovered the first black holes, and they look like that shape, but they're smaller, and they're like, call it optics, but it's not. It's a receiver. A radio receiver goes down an ever narrowing tunnel, and it's curved. That's right. It's very similar to that.
Yeah, and look, I wouldn't be surprised if the same underlying principles apply, right? So look, this is completely disregarded in the West, this kind of research. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stuff like that, which is really interesting. See, this is another thing when you look at how we actually interact with the world. Things that come out of Russia we tend to ignore. We tend to, oh, no, this is nonsense, or it's so far behind, or because we still have this Cold War image of Russia as the enemy and primitive and evil, etc., etc. But let's be very clear here. Okay, the Soviet Union was the first nation in space, the first nation to put a satellite up, the first nation that put an animal into orbit, the first nation that put a person.
That's right.
Yeah. First, yeah, absolutely. So they were the first in all of this. And America was way behind the 8 ball on that. I mean, way behind. Let's be very clear.
Making
and the Russians
making it safer and safer and safer until it wasn't, and then
until it wasn't.
until they fixed that again. So, in the quest for safety, they ran behind.
And look, the Russians are just as capable as the West in every regard. It's a country of 300 million people, right? And there's the music. But that's the end of remote viewing, everyone.
And next week we'll come up with something else to bring to you. And look, if you're coming up next should be Jer Bear and his awesome show After Hours. Do participate, call in, even message him in the chat room. But look, as Meki says, until next week, be safe.